In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. You may be seated. Well, we get a short passage from the writings of the prophet Jeremiah this morning. If you're not as familiar with Jeremiah's ministry, I'll give you a quick background. Jeremiah's name is rather unique in the Hebrew language. The exact meaning of which is sort of perplexed scholars. In picking apart the Hebrew, someone suggests that his name could mean the Lord exalts or the Lord establishes. But the most literal meaning of the name, in looking at the Hebrew, is most likely the Lord throws. The Lord throws. God is a quarterback, apparently. The Lord throws is what this name kind of literally means. And of course, it could be understood in the sense of hurling something to the ground. Or humbling something or someone that was once in an exalted place. And if you read the book from beginning to end, you definitely understand how this name could be significant from that aspect. There's a measured trajectory downward throughout the book that follows the last gasps of this once exalted nation of Judah. The Lord throws down. Impending judgment really is a key theme throughout Jeremiah's writings, and the humbling of the nations who have sinned against the Lord can really be tracked like a thread. Not only Judah in itself, but also the other nations that have sinned against God. The measure of judgment is coming. That's the sense that we get from this book. Jeremiah, personally, Jeremiah was a member of the priestly household of Hilkiah. And you get a sense from his writings that the vast majority of his words that he was delivering, he was a prophet of doom and impending judgment. And guess what? He attracted very few friends. I don't know if you know anyone like this, but the people that are usually very gloomy and pessimistic, that always feel like a disaster is just around the corner, they're not the people you call for a good time on a Friday night, right? There's a time and place for that, but generally it's not somebody you want to hang around with, on a regular basis. And expectedly so, only 3 or 4 individuals are named as friends or allies to Jeremiah in this book. Everybody else pretty much hates this guy. Everybody else just reviles him, and a lot of them violently oppose him and his message. They want to shut him up. The particular time period of Jeremiah's career is interesting as well. It spans from the reign of Josiah all the way to Zedekiah. And if you know your Judaic history, you know what that means. What happens between those two figures. They're sort of polar opposites to each other. Josiah was a young king. He takes the throne at like 7 or 8, I think. Very, very young ruler. And throughout his reign, he has this strong desire to institute vast religious reforms. He wants to bring the people back. You may remember it's under his rule that he institutes some spring cleaning, and they're cleaning out the temple, and lo and behold, they discover this scroll. It's been lost for decades and decades. And they unroll it, lo and behold, it is the Mosaic Covenant. It is most likely one of the books of the Torah. It is all the commands that were given to the Jews so that they could live successfully and prosperously in the land. And not only were they not doing them, not only were they breaking all these commandments, they completely lost the thing. They had no idea even where it was. So Josiah, under his reign, they dust off the covenant, and he institutes these vast religious reforms where idols are smashed. They are bringing temple worship. Proper temple worship begins to happen again. Josiah is passionate about leading the people, being the leader that he's supposed to be, and leading them towards God and not away from God. But in a great tragedy, maybe one of the greatest tragedies of Jewish history, he died a young man on the battlefield. He is killed as they're fighting the Egyptians. All the hope for reform is lost when his body falls on the battlefield. So for him, all the way to Zedekiah, you see this trajectory downward. Rulers who followed not in the footsteps of Josiah, but instead followed the ways of their grandfathers and their great-grandfathers, leading the people into further wickedness, to idolatry. So the polar opposite, the other bookend of Jeremiah's reign was Zedekiah, the ruler Zedekiah. And he leads the nation into further spiritual decline and really its ultimate termination point. This time the external pressures build, the Babylonian Empire is too powerful, and Yahweh's hand of favor is removed. All these factors end in Judah being wiped out as a nation. Under Zedekiah's reign, the Babylonians come knocking. They lay siege to Jerusalem. They storm the city, break down the walls, burn everything. Temples destroyed. Any spark of hope that was left for God's hand of blessing to once again be on the land of Judah goes up in flames with the temple. So Jeremiah begins prophesying in Judah under the reign of Josiah, where hope still reigns. And his prophetic journey ends at the destruction of Jerusalem. And of course, he sees this. He sees what's coming. He sees the impending judgment. This span of time is a period of storm and stress. And really, the doom loomed over other nations as well, not just Judah. The smaller nations of this area, Western Asia, Middle East, were often pawns in the power plays of these bigger empires, Egypt, Assyria, and of course, Babylon. So Jeremiah's life, spans through Judah's last best hope at ultimate reformation, covenant renewal, all the way to the very end of Judah as a nation. Cities destroyed. Zedekiah's, brought before the ruler. His sons are killed before his eyes, and then they gouge his eyes out. So that's the last thing that he sees. Can you imagine the devastation? So because of this, vast time period, we see a mixture of hope and sadness throughout Jeremiah's work. But when we get to chapter 23, which is what we read this morning for our Old Testament reading, the Lord is very clear in helping the reader understand, the recipient of this prophecy, know that He is present in both the hope and the sadness. He's present in both. What does He say? He says, "Am I a God near at hand and not a God far off?" Even that one statement, that one verse, that one self-expression, God shows Himself to be a personal, imminently present divinity. Even though His hand of favor gets removed, and the judgment comes in, doesn't mean that he has abandoned them. He says, do I not fill both the heavens and the earth? There's no place where he is not. There's no part of the created reality that he does not fill. God exists and is present in the hopeful moments and our greatest triumphs, and he is present in the deepest sadness, the crushing tragedies that life so often hands us. It's true, no one can prepare for the downfall of a kingdom. That was Jeremiah's challenge, right? He was trying to help people understand what was coming, and they were laughing in his face. Nobody can really prepare for that. Just like no one can prepare for the death of a loved one. Even when you know it's coming. Even when it's a long, slow decline and you know death is knocking at the door. You can't prepare for that. You can't prepare for the loss that you feel when that person's presence is no longer there with you. You can't prepare for the loss of security or freedom or stability that happens with the loss of a job. Truth is, grief exists. Right? Grief exists in this life. Everybody in this room knows that at this point. It's woven into the fiber of our reality. But just as true is that God is present with us in that grief. Just as he is present with us in those joyful, glorious moments, he's present with us in those dark seasons of our lives as well. I'm not a God far off, he said. I don't just inhabit the heavens. He says, I'm right here. I'm with you. Even as the Babylonians are storming your gates, I'm still with you. Truth is, he is a God that lovingly corrects his children as well. You see that in the letter to the Hebrews. He is just like a father. He chastens us when we go astray. But it is a loving hand that carries out that chastening. He's a God that repositions us when we go astray. Sometimes a little more forcefully than other times when we need it. But he is a God that lovingly corrects, repositions his children. But just as true, he is a God that walks with us through the fires and the tragedies that life brings our way. So as we commune with him this morning at the table, let's, in gratitude, come with grateful hearts for his presence, his immanence, the fact that he rules both heaven and earth, the abiding presence of our God and the all-sufficient sacrifice of his Son. Amen.